Professional.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to Logik Live. It's been a few weeks, I think, since we had one of these. I went through a very busy phase at work, which I'm sure we can all relate to. And then I caught myself a little COVID, which I've come through on the other side. But if there's a little tickle or a little cough, I apologize ahead of time. I'll do my best to mute myself. We have an amazing show today. I'm super excited for this. If the run-throughs that we did and the last 15 minutes are an indication at all of how much fun this is going to be, then this is going to be one for the record books. Hello, everybody. Hello, Michael and Christoph. Randy McEntee is here. Oh, that's exciting. Hello, Sybil, Ralph, Jeff. How are the levels, man? Please tell me that the presets that I made, a month ago are actually still working. Gavin and Nick, Philippe, Chatty and Rex Carter, and Kieran Baxter is here. This is going to be a great show. We're going to talk organization in flame. There's no right answer to this. There's no wrong answer to this. This is why I love it. Thank you very much, Jeff. Oh, it's so good to be back. I missed you guys. Whew. Yeah, we've done... it was a great lead up to the show here. Just I have more people tuned in, or I have more guests coming on than I've ever had before. So I'm super excited to try to manage all of the screens and everything. But the music has turned inspirational and introspective. I got to get ready for the fade here, or Randy's never going to forgive me, and he's on today. And so, all right, well, that worked at least, thank God. Hey, everybody, it's Andy. Welcome to Logik Live number 80, which I cannot believe. Let's get this show going. This episode of Logik Live is brought to you by Synesys.io, solutions development, integration, and support, supporting flame artists since 1997. And it's sponsored by our friends at AJA and Flame, together since 2006. If you need tech support, call Jack Horrocks at jack@flametech.com.au. For all your Flame networking storage or custom build needs, Jack is there for anything that you need. And if you're in the market for any plugins from Boris Effects, be sure to use the Logik.tv discount code and save yourself 15% on any Boris Effect product, standalone or subscription, when you use the code Logik-15 at checkout. While you're checking things out, check out the Logik merch store. It's almost spring. I mean, I know the calendar says it's spring, but it's still a little cold out there. But it's time to start thinking about that warm weather Logik merch. We're going to be giving away some t-shirts and some hats later on. Oh, there's those hats I just mentioned, available in black and white, and you can get all that by going to Logik.tv, clicking on the merch button. Want to thank our patrons at Patreon. We are up to 122 patrons. Thank you so much, patrons. We could not do what we do without you here at Logik, and Randy and I are cooking up something special for our patrons that we're going to talk to you about in a couple of weeks. If you'd like to sponsor what we do here at Logik for as little as $5 a month and get access to some exclusive content like the Logik after shows that we do on Zoom, you can sign up for as little as $5 at patreon.com/LogikTV. Speaking of the forum has been going super strong the last month. I wanted to update you on the stats for 2022. We're up to 1,087 users. That's up 22 from last month. 479,000 page views. That's up 131,000 from last month. Last month was a good month. 4,500 posts. That's up 1,200 from last month. And we're up to 326 users on Discord, which is up 30 from last month. Thanks so much, everybody. If you haven't joined the Logik TV Discord, please do join the conversation. You get real-time chat, screen sharing. It's just a fantastic way to keep the community going. Head on over to forum.logik.tv, click the Discord link, and join in on the fun. Speaking of fun, we debuted 3 new classes for 2022 on Logik Academy. The first one is Beauty Techniques in Flame, done by yours truly, where I covered things like blemish removal, cleaning up of blotchy areas, red eyes, eye bags, and dealing with texture and color balancing. And also I structured the whole thing on kind of like an overview of working as efficiently as possible. Check those out. We also have 2 from our friend Randy McEntee. The first is a complete look at the machine learning time warp tool, which is an absolute godsend. Thank you, Andrei Toloshny, for giving that to the community. And Randy also takes us through setting up PyBox if you want to connect Nuke and Flame together. So those are Beauty Techniques in Flame, setting up PyBox, the machine learning time warp, join the connected conform and image node from Jeff Kyle, and then Intro to NDI and 8-Minute Aces from Randy. Those are available for free at logik.tv. Check them out. I want to thank Autodesk for sponsoring Logik Academy. I'm out of practice on my timing there, Randy. Speaking of things from Autodesk, our friend Grant Kay keeps churning out some excellent content on the Flame Learning channel. He has a new installment of Flame Fundamentals for all the new artists out there on adding effects into your sequence. Part 6 here is about adding basic titles with the text module. And the latest Flame capsule was all about changing the layout of scopes. So definitely check those out at youtube.com/user/flame-how-tos, or just search for the Flame Learning channel. Got a little bit of an announcement here that I'm very excited about, so I'm just going to do this. And I say, after 80 episodes of Logik Live and Logik Academies, the 2 one frame of whites and everything produced here at Logik, done by my trusty MacBook Pro, I'm proud to say that the Logik Live Studio is now powered by an HP Z8 G4 workstation donated by our good friends at HP. I want to thank Barbara and the entire team at HP. We're definitely going to put the machine to good use. And that's it, sitting behind me underneath the Logik.tv sign, and just super excited about that. And again, a huge thank you to the team at HP. I've been using their workstations for years, and it was just a wonderful gift. All right. Let's talk about organization, my friends. Okay, how we organize things in Flame is like it's like a chili recipe. You know, everyone has their own recipe, and everyone thinks that theirs is the best. Everyone is convinced that their organizational system that they've come up with and that they've been using forever is absolutely the right and best way to go. Which is why this show that we're doing is so special to me, because we're going to have 5 different people who are going to show how they organize things in Flame, how they solve their organizational problems. And it's like a safe space for everyone who's set in their ways to pick up new tips and tricks and techniques. So I'm going to bring on the entire panel today. There they are. We have our friend David Kreitz coming in from Kentucky, right, David? Oh, you're muted, sir.
Yes, that's correct.
There you are. Nice to see you again, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
Down in the lower left corner, coming from New York, we have Tim Farrell. Hello, Tim.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Across the pond, we have the first man on the moon and the creator of the Render Dome Bandit. We have Adam Taylor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, sir. And then coming to us from Parts Unknown, my partner in crime, my dear friend, the hardest working man in show business. You got to know him, you got to love him, Randy McEntee. How's it going, Randy?
Hey, doing well.
Oh, it's good. I thought your screen was frozen there for a minute, and so my heart skipped a beat.
No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just trying to get you to laugh and cough. That's all I'm trying to do.
That's what. There you go. That's what friends of. That was for you. That was for you, Randy. Courtesy of my pulmonologist. So, like I said at the top, everybody has a different way of organizing things in Flame. There are a million ways to organize things. It's just like any other app. We deal with a lot of media. We deal with a lot of changes. We deal with a lot of versions. And I tried to assemble the dream team here of the best minds to help us figure out from different perspectives how we solve these problems. Just so everyone knows, yesterday when I got the best minds together to do a run through, I put up a split screen, and this is what this is the first thing that Randy and Tim wanted to do, and so now that
first and last,
we bookended. Like I said, I did assemble the best minds, but I figured the best way to do this is just kind of dive in. So, Randy, if you would like to kind of take us through how you organize a job in Flame, let me bring up your screen. And of course, if anybody has any questions or comments, throw them in the chat, and I'll make sure that the panel sees them.
Cool. Good afternoon, everyone. So I have a kind of a non-answer to most of the organization. I don't get a chance to actually do or set up much. I work locally here in my studio. I also work remotely for other people, and I also control other people's machines. So I don't get a chance to settle in very often. Upgraded versions and users and all that jazz. So there's only just like 2 or 3 things I do. The libraries are just I work on the desktop. The libraries are just big thoughts. So I used to work in restaurants, and I know everyone's tired of me saying that, but it's a good way to visualize it. And these are libraries that just have different thoughts. So one was a calzone campaign. One were 15s, ones were 30, ones were 6s, and one was me assisting another artist and doing work there. But this is kind of a typical layout for my desktop. I've got what you can see here is just a metric ton of purple batch groups, and these are just all the little compy things I had to do for all these spots. I make them a color. It's not always the same color. Sometimes it's different. In this case, it was purple. And then just because I came back I started from an old smoke edit desk reel, or is that what that was called? Edit desk?
Randy, your screen
no.
went black. There we go. Hey!
Screen went black. Okay,
There
then
we
I'm
go.
going to select the clip. Oh, I can see it going black. That's not very helpful.
There we go. It's a live show.
Interesting.
It's funny. I remember my first day using Flame too, so I wouldn't, don't be embarrassed by it or anything.
Oh, interesting.
As
soon as I click away from all right, well, I'll figure it out. Oh, as soon as I show the desktop, that's exciting. Okay. It didn't happen yesterday.
All right.
Oh, well. So, just because I use the old edit desk, then I just keep everything in one big darn reel. It's separated by type. So there's 30s, then there's round 2, and then I went to 16:9 web, and you can see my handwriting is atrocious, and 1x1s, and that's kind of almost about it. The only couple things I end up doing is I do make one reel bright yellow, so that if I need to go into batch, then I need to put something in there that I need to get into batch, then it's just I know that it's right in this yellow thing. So if it's there, then I just know it's right there, because I get kind of distracted.
See, I think that's really interesting because there's always like this kind of question of how do we use, what's the best way to use the desktop? What is the desktop? It's kind of like some people see it as a throwback to to an older time, a simpler time in Flame. And others see it as it's a foundation of their organizational kind of system. I know the way that I work is like I'm one of those like daily desktop people. Dated desktops for every day. But I really love how you really only use 2 reels, right? You have one in there for all your spots. You have the little slates that you hand painted or whatever. It doesn't matter. They're you may see it in the reel and see it as one thing, but when you see it in the media panel on the left there, it's like, okay, I get it. These are my instant visual cues for either the different aspect ratios or the different versions or whatever. And I'm going to need one other place to kind of like take stuff and throw it from a library into batch, and that's what that yellow reel is. Again, like I was one of those people who I'm going to take things, I'm going to make them different colors. That's like prescribed, like written into the Flame Bible. And I kind of love that, for you, it's really just a visual cue. Yes, you made it yellow, but it could be anything really,
Well, when I used to work when I used to cook, my, things were laid out spatially. And so like if I'm on a grill, and if I had 30 steaks with 5 different temperatures, all my rares would be on my right and I'd walk them left. And so it just, for me, it's more about a spatial thing. That's why the library doesn't make sense for me working at a library. So I'll remember where things are, like things are far that way. And that's kind of how I put that together. So the desktops it's just like a big workbench. And so, there's all kinds of different places and spaces and, long-term storage and freezers and coolers and things you need to keep warm and close. And that's kind of how I set up the workstation or my work area.
How much of your workflow and your organization did you have to change when you went freelance? Like how much of it like originally was geared towards I'm working in a collaborative environment with other artists all the time, and now I'm kind of working for myself. Like, did you find that like you brought some things with you in the beginning that you absolutely didn't need anymore because you weren't in a place with 10 other artists?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes and no. So what I gave up in like we all need to label everything and put everything this way and whatever. And then I was able to, inherit like, an access Python and have all kinds of things because I could control that on my local machine outside of a major facility. So yeah, kind of a no, but I think every show is different, and I everything is so different for me that I don't think I've ever done the same thing twice in a row. And so there's just guidelines, and as long as you leave yourself a hint every now and then, and that's why the timeline for me is so great, because it's just the language of our people, if that makes any sense. And so that's why I don't save anything. I don't save dated folders of artwork coming in, because I don't know if I'm going to ever need it, and it's already on the server. So I lean on that part of it pretty heavily, which doesn't work for some, but for me, I'll just let somebody else deal with it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I want to just share a couple of comments with you. Let's see. Nick Smith was just like loves the center cut filet one by one, using the food analogies. And Jeff as well just loves how you relate everything back to your past experiences. And I think it's a great way to kind of to make it all relatable, all of these crazy concepts. I'm going to go ahead and take the plunge here and show you my screen. Let's see. Oh, hey, there we go. Okay. This is an imaginary job that I created, so you'll see some things that maybe make sense but don't make sense. But yeah, I kind of, for me, organization was very, very date driven. So I have a daily desktop with everything that I've worked on that day, and I therefore end up accumulating, daily desktops. But I guess I was always in a like a collaborative environment, or at least in my work setup. I needed to be prepared for, like, the producer saying to me, the client wants to go with what we did on Thursday or something like that. And that extended to kind of anything that I brought in from the outside. So I have a library that I made called Import, and in there are folders for audio and CG and design. And whenever I get audio, I throw a dated folder in there, and I bring in stuff for that day. So as I'm getting new versions of audio, it's all uncached stuff. But again, for me, it was kind of like a good visual reference for, what happened on what day. And then as far as like the timelines go, I start off, simple, and then I just keep, as the timelines change or as the cuts change, I add new versions of the timeline. I make copies of the timeline here. Occasionally when it gets a little too unwieldy, because, sometimes some of us are dealing with 30s, 15s, and multiple aspect ratios, and then the dreaded 6s, is I'll take like older cuts and I'll just put them on an old reel here like this, just so I keep my latest and greatest. I'll always throw the rough cut on a separate video track. I've been putting it at the top out of habit, but I've seen a lot of people throw it at the bottom, and I as long as it's on a separate track, I actually think I kind of like seeing it on the bottom. But there's one organizational trick that I picked up from working with Jeff Kyle, and that was, I used to organize my timeline. It looked like a diagram of New York City. Like on the base layer here on the bottom, I had my base conform essentially, and then versions of comps built themselves up. And I ended up with something that was kind of staggered. When Jeff came to work with us, he showed me that he keeps the most current version of all of his comps on the top, and then older stuff makes its way down the bottom. And I saw that, and I was like, well, that's heresy. Like that clearly is nothing you should ever do ever. But the more I looked at it, the more I thought about it, I was like, this makes perfect sense, because to me anyway, that just meant that across the top here, we always had like the latest and greatest. And I guess the only other thing I'll throw out there is the rationale for me behind creating a desktop per day was, again, to keep organized. But I end up over the course of a long job with so much stuff that I don't need that I find it slows the flame down. I end up making libraries called old desktops, and I throw them in there and close the libraries to get it out of RAM. And I don't think I've ever needed any of that stuff in like the last 10 years or something. So I'm rethinking this whole notion of dated desktops. Oh, one other organizational thing I do is when a spot finally gets approved to ship, and that's a blessed day that we all hope happens on schedule and on time, I'll create a real group specifically for that spot, and I label it with the ad ID or the ISKI code. And in there I'll have like the conform it came from, a slated titled version, a slated generic, and then whatever other elements that might be needed. So this way I can look at the desktop and the desktop will show me this was, like a work area, this conform reel, and then everything else is, what delivered and when.
Hey, Andy, real quick question for you. Chatty in the on YouTube was asking, can you just briefly describe what the heck a desktop is?
Oh, sure. Me? No. Let me bring that back up here. So, and thank you for keeping an eye on that, Randy.
Sure.
A desktop, at least for me, has always been kind of like the granddaddy and flame of organizational areas of like things. Think of it as like a super folder, because in the desktop you can keep multiple timelines, you can keep multiple batch groups.
Yeah, can you just click on the desktop tab just to simplify it for us too?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So here in the desktop, you can see here I have I have this real group called conform that has my that has my working conform in it, and old conforms and rough cuts and whatever. This is kind of like a work area. And then I also have in here batch groups for the individual comp shots that I did as part of this. So I have here in one place all the comps that went into these conforms, the conforms themselves, and then real groups for each delivery. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I always saw a desktop. It's kind of like a super folder, where you can keep all of these separate kind of types of things, whether they're reels, clips, or batch groups together in one place. It's a great container as well. If you need to hand off this job to somebody, you can throw everything that they need into one desktop and then send that either to an archive or wire it across the network. So, but I could ask you all the same question. What do you think?
I'll give you a different answer.
Well, do it.
No, I mean, that's not better. It's just, I think that's the best part about all this is that you're going to see there's 3 more examples, and they're not right or wrong. It's just how people do it and how they need to be organized.
Yeah, I'll be giving you a very different explanation of desktops as well.
Yeah, cool.
Perfect. That's what I love about this. All right, cool. Let's move on to, Tim, why don't you go ahead and give us a different, I'll throw it to you then. Take it away, Tim.
You're surprising us here. Here we go.
Yes. I told everybody the running order ahead of time, and now I'm just...
Yeah, there we go. So, is my desk on? Do we see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
organization rules. Yes, it does.
Our organizational rules, and of course, rule number 1. Actually, they're more like guidelines. As Randy was saying, every job is a little bit different, and what I try to do is be completely flexible, even though I'm pretty stringent as well. Number 2. It isn't important how fast I do a job. What's more important is how fast I can do it again and again. So all of my organization goes into being aware that I'm probably going to be doing this over and over and over. And, I often say this as a joke, but the fact of the matter is we were talking about this in the run-up earlier yesterday. And a client has no idea between when I start and when I give them first looks. They have no idea how long that takes. But what they are going to know is when they ask for something to change, they're going to see how fast they get it. So all of my organization is built on that attribute. And number 3, organize up front. Don't get halfway in, decide, this isn't working. I better clean this up. You start at the bottom all the time. You build a foundation and you work yourself up. So the first thing I do is I have a series of templates. Because I work on my own machine at work, at the office, I can do anything I want. I can set all sorts of toolboxes up, all sorts of templates, and I can use them over and over and over. So what I do is I have a library project template. We've called it Flame Project Library here, and it matches.
That's a good name.
It roughly matches the shared storage network that everybody else in the facility uses. So when they hand me stuff, they put it in these same folders, and I have the one bookmark to rule them all and connect it all.
Thank you, Christoph,
Media panel desktop.
Yes, thank you, Christoph, for that.
Thank you very much. Media panel desktop. No vertical, no horizontal, no freeform. We don't need no stinking reels. As far as I'm concerned, a desktop is nothing but a big glorified folder. In my desktop, I have batch groups. I have a master work in progress reel group, and then I have a reel for my work in progress, connected sources, connected renders, and a work reel. And we'll get a little bit into that in a moment to see how I use those. And now we'll zoom in a little bit tighter on this. How do I organize things in those individual reels? Always, I start longest at the top, shortest at the bottom, and I'll try to make some sort of arrangement that makes sense. And yeah, it might be fluid. I might have to change that around. I might have to make all my 60s in a row, then all my 30s for the different spots in a row. And because I'm doing 16 by 9s, because I'm doing 1 by 1s, I make sure those different reels all match everything in the same order so that at a glance, I can quickly go through and figure out what's what.
And I just to point out real quick, Tim, just for the audience at home, the majority of the work that you do, if not all the work that you do, is on spots, is on 60s, 30s,
99% of the work I do is on spots. Maybe I'll do something
short format, like high turnover, just
You
creating
bet.
a lot of content. Yeah.
And you're doing everything, Tim, right? Like all like the spots and the shots, right?
I do everything, top to bottom, except for CG. And of course, we do have a design department that might do title animations and things like that. But I do all the comp work, I do all the cleanup, I do all the green screen, I do everything. So we're going to move on here. How do I build an individual clip? When I bring my rough cut in, I bring it in at the same resolution and same bit depth that my final is going to be at. That is my foundation that I'm starting with. And so that way, whatever I drop on top, it's all going to fit into that foundation. Like most of us, above that rough cut on a new version, I'm going to be putting my basic conform. On top of that, I'm going to be putting all of the comp work and stuff that I do. And then I'm going to hard commit the top of that, and that's my generic master. And then I'm going to start another version on top of that, starting with my generic master on the bottom. I'm going to add all my titles. For instance, that long one might be a bug. The ones in the middle might be some graphic elements that I've been given from the agency or from our art department. And the top layer might be legals. Again, I'm going to hard commit that. That's my titled master. And we used to end it there, but no, now I have to do another version on top that has the subtitles. And we hard commit that as well. Why do I do it this way? I can see at a glance all of the different pieces really easily. And when somebody says, can you give me the generic? I don't have to go through and turn stuff on or turn stuff off, et cetera, et cetera. I just put my primary on that layer and export. I'm done. Same with the title master, same with the subtitled master. So let's go on and take a quick look at how I might do this with a real job. And let's see, we'll open this up, we'll do this, and we'll open up our project library. Now, you see in here, I have all of my footage in this particular folder, and it's all kind of out of order. I never keep my sorts turned on. Everything I do, I like it to drop into the bottom of the reel. That way, it's just so much easier to find. But in this case, I want my footage sorted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on to alphanumeric. I'm going to grab it all, pick it up, and drop it in the same folder. And then I'm going to turn the alphanumeric off. And now it's correctly sorted. I'm going to select all of that.
Is it safe to say that you find yourself out of sorts? That's what you're saying.
I never find myself out of sorts.
There we go.
But, if you want to make that pun, well, go for it. I'm going to splice all of these, and I'm going to go up, and I'm going to drop them in that reel that was called connected sources. I'm going to open that as a sequence. I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to add a connected segment on all of those. Somewhere in there. There we go. And so now all of those have become connected, and that's my source reel.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like I see. You're doing like a manual version of like I'm creating a sources reel or a shots reel or whatever in the connected conform menu.
Exactly. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. I'm looking at the little screen while I try to do this. I'm going to get my rough cut, my reference. I'm going to throw it up into that work in progress. I'm going to open it up as a sequence. And now this is something I've been doing since about 1982. I establish the beginning of the spot. I keep the two pops separate, but it's kind of like a baseline. If ever it's dark and I'm lost, I always know where to find my two pop and start from there. Kind of old fashioned. More and more I find I don't need it, but it's a habit I have no intention of breaking. Once I've done that, if you notice, I have this really long name that the editor gave me, and I don't want that. So now I'm going to simply call this the Justin 30. And I've changed the name in my media panel, but you see I still have the old name in all of my elements. So if anybody anytime asks me, well, what version are you using? All I have to do is take a glance down at that layer. And
That's a good solution. That's a really
So
good solution to the problem.
I'm going to add a layer above that, and I'm going to take my EDL and I'm just going to drop it on there on top. And I'm going to go to conform and I'm going to point it to that connected sources. And everything links right up. Boom. All right. So before we go on, so this is now basically just got the footage in its basic place, you know, and I'll go through and I'll check it, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're going to skip a bunch of stuff because, you know, the details can get really boring. And we'll go up and take a look at this job after it's a little bit more completed here. You know, open that up. And so now you can see I've done all of my repo work. I've put some fluid morphs in there, et cetera. All of this is done with connected segments. You can see here I've taken, you know, I've cleaned up an ice cream cone and taken the dildo off the top of that jar. Client might say, oh, can we see the sky bluer? All of this is all connected.
They're either going to say one or the other.
Control Shift B, and I'm into my batch. I don't. If you can see it there, you'll notice I name all my batches by the basic camera roll that they belong to. That way, you know, there's nothing. I don't have batches named Ice Cream Cone 1. You know, and I wonder what the hell shot was that? Everything is named from the camera roll, so I can always trace it back all the way back to the raw footage if I have to, and do that rather quickly. And as I said before, I've hard committed that. I've brought it up to the next layer, and if you'll notice, all of these titles, they're also connected segments. Mm-hmm. Even the legals, which I have done as batch gap effects, are all connected. So that way, when the client says, no, that legal has to say something else, I don't have to go through every single spot and make sure I find where the legal is and change it. I change it once, and then I go to each spot and make sure it's correct, and I'll re-render the title above it. So now here I'm only showing you one spot. How does this work when you got a lot more stuff? So
actually, Tim, before you move on, and since we have the screen, or if you could just bring that timeline back.
Yeah, stand by. Here we go.
A couple of questions from the chat. Hard Dave was wondering, why do you hard commit before you add to the supers? Do you do that as an organizational thing, or do you do it?
I do it for multiple reasons. I do it as an organizational thing. I do it in case something has become unrendered down below, and I don't want to have to sit there and render it again. And I do it so that I can quickly copy it off to someplace if I need it.
Cool. We have another question from, I don't know if you know this person, from Joanne Yu, who's wondering, could you please explain why the work picture is always a separate version?
Yeah, I don't like to have it combined with my any of my picture my final picture versions. It's a lot easier to use the P and the S when they're on separate versions. It gets very out of sorts for me if my primary and my secondary are both part of the same version area. But also I don't want to take an accident where I've left a gap and I get the work cut and I don't realize it until the client says, why is that shot so fuzzy? And then I realize at some point I've dropped a shot out and I've got the work cut in there. So
Quinn said the same thing, that you run the risk of accidentally outputting your offline instead of the final.
Yeah.
All right.
But mostly because it's easier it's easier organizationally for me. I don't want it mixed in with my final product. So we're going to zip along here real quickly to another project. And so this was a project that started out as 3 spots. There was the blender, the golf, and the pizza. They were for broadcast. But then the golf and the pizza had a couple alternate versions, so that was 5 spots. Okay, and then there was a pre-Super Bowl and a post-Super Bowl, so that made it 10 spots. And then there was a 1x1 and a 9x16, so that was 10, 20, 30 spots. There was a 6-second cut down of everything, so that made it 60 spots. And then, of course, everything was subtitled, so that was 120 spots, plus generics. That was 180 deliverables. So this is where it becomes really, really important to maintain that order throughout everything. Now, this is what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select everything and open it. Boom. So now everything is opened as a sequence. And you can see it has all that same connection stuff that other one spot that I showed you did. But these connections run all through all 60 of these spots. So that when the client says, we got to change the legal, and this was for DraftKings. And so that's online gambling. And while we were doing the spots, different states were actually in the process of legalizing it. So we were constantly changing all of these legals around to accommodate the different states and what they wanted. And I would literally get a call and said, we have to change all the pizza spots. And I could easily, quickly go through. I knew where each pizza spot was in order. And here on the 15s, I've selected them all. I'm going to make them a color. God. And now all of those red spots are the ones I know. In the next few minutes, I have to go through and deal with each of these. So at a glance, I can find them very quickly. When I'm done, I'm going to select everything again. And I'm just going to turn the color off.
It's like Tim's presentation is brought to you by the Cost Plus Bid, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go.
Right? We'll make it up in the overages. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's kind of every job. So that's pretty much it. I could go on all day about how then I prepare outputs and stuff like that. But, this is the essence of how I like to work. I like to keep certain orders of things so that at a glance I can find stuff. And that helps me make sense of things when I literally have 60 of these. And each one has 3 levels of stuff to make 180 spots.
Yeah, if you're trying to keep track of 180 spots, and yes.
It a little funny for this, the client said, okay, we have to make this change that I think rippled through either 30 or 60 spots. And we said, okay, we'll have it to you in about an hour and a half. And the client said, why does it take so long? There's only 3 spots. So.
Oh my God. Best to
Proof
keep them in the dark.
They have no idea.
Refer back to Tim's first slide.
There you go.
Amazing. I got a question here for you from Jeff, who's wondering, do you find that hard committing different sections of your conform slows down your ability to sync different versions together when you have to make a change?
No. It might slow it down a little bit, but remember, the renders only take a few moments because nothing in this is longer than 15 seconds.
Yeah, true.
And plus, it forces me to go through and make sure everything is updated correctly and I've checked everything through. And, I don't like to leave it up to technology. It's like, because every job is a little bit different and everything in this particular job has little nuances, I got to make sure that it's all correct. I can't just assume that technology has done it. What it does help me do, though, having everything connected, is when I replace it once, I don't have to go through each spot and find the piece that I have to replace. I can I understand that it's done it, and then I go through and I re-render to make sure it's done it. But so it's much less time than if I'm doing it individually. But sure, it's work, And I'd rather take the time to make sure it's correct rather than just leave it up to chance that it's what could go wrong,
Right. I think Tim Hanna said it best here that just talking about an 80 spot delivery is giving him intense anxiety.
180.
We've all been there. We hear you. We see you, Tim. You're loved. Well, this is, this is why I wanted to get this group together, because like the stuff that Tim showed, the organization and the techniques he showed, in some ways are kind of unique to someone who's dealing with 180 deliverables. And that's just one project that you're working on right now. You know,
Yes.
there may be more than one going on, but David and Adam work in entirely different environments. And so I wanted to go to Adam, and you know, you work for you work for a toy company. I remember when we had you on for Logik Life and Renderdome Bandit, and what I thought was absolutely fascinating when we did our run through was you explained to me how you went from Final Cut 7 to Smoke.
Smoke. Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
there was no Flame, there was no other Flame artist, there was nobody saying, well, this is the way that I've been doing this since 1993, and so that's why we're going to do it this way. And I remember you saying you were interested in coming on today to figure out to learn what a library was used for. You know,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's a
right.
great to see a different perspective. So let me bring up your screen, and you can take us through it.
Okay. Yeah, oh, there we go. Big mirrors. What I
It's,
tend to work with,
It goes on forever.
Libraries are for books, right?
Exactly.
yeah, I tend to, like you say, I came to Smoke via Flame, via Final Cut 7. I do all the commercials for one of the biggest toy companies in the UK. And before that, I was working in animation on Bob the Builder and Pingu for about 6 years.
How did that
So
song
when
go again?
I know
No,
that song,
I'm
unbelievable.
kidding.
We used to sing that song
I'm
for
no
my
number
twin
5.
sons. Oh my God. That's
Yes, we can.
Yep. Yes, we can.
Oh yes, yes indeed. He's got a little picture of him up on the wall there. Yeah, so I set up the post-production facility at the toy company purely from scratch, having never worked on a commercial in my life. They just believed me when I said I could do it, which was good. So I came at this from a very naive point of view. So I ended up working out that the toy company is a very cyclical industry, and you need to have access to everything that you've ever done. And on my machine back at the office, I've got various RAIDs set up, and I can pull up any commercial that I've done in the last 16 years. They're all live, they're all currently available. Mainly because every 3 or 4 years, toys just keep on going round and round, and somebody will run in and say, oh, we need to get something out quickly. We're rerunning Peppa Pig from 3 years ago. So I've got to be able to find it and pull it up without having to go through archives and all that nonsense. So it's all live. So I've set up my folders within my Mac so that I have an organizational structure where everything starts off by the brand name. And inside the brand name, I'll have the year that I'm working. And some of these can go back 7 or 8 years because of longevity of products. So I have the years, and inside each year, I've got the different campaigns. And like I say, Peppa Pig, we've done 50, 60 different campaigns for that one product. And then in each one of the campaigns, I'll have a set of folders, which are basically just audio, where I'll bung anything for the audio, CG. I always tend to put packaging files in, because one of the problems I have is our graphics department are purely there for doing catalog pages and for doing, they do some logo design, and they do mainly packaging, which means none of the materials that I get are ever suited for broadcast or for TV or for video. So I'll pull in the packaging files and then strip those out for logos and little graphics that they've used that could add to the commercial. Rushes is when I've shot something or when we've had it shot. And source is when we're getting pre-finished commercials from other companies. Again, the toy industry is quite weird in that different companies will sell everyone else's products. So we will be stocking other toy companies' products from around the world, and we'll be selling them in the UK. And a lot of companies around the world will be selling our products under their own brand, and they'll be using my commercials. So often I have to repurpose existing master files, and all that I get will be a ProRes file. There'll be one generic version with no graphics, and there'll be the graphics file, and usually only a 30 or a 15. And from that, I've got to make all the different versions that we need. So having a little source folder there is where I'll put all those. My video out is where I render everything into. So I'll render my finals out. The premix is where I render the edit prior to going into Pro Tools for doing the audio.
Because you do that too, right?
I do that in Pro Tools, yeah. I cannot stand how Flame handles audio. It's terrible. It's a horrible... it just doesn't work for me. And I've been using Pro Tools for 20 years now, so it makes sense to stick with what I know. And then a fairly recent addition to my folders is social media. So we can start adding in all those lovely 1x1s and 9x16s. So over in Flame, hang on, what's going on here? Get out of that. Yeah. I tend to have my workspace laid out very basically. It's based on what I used to do when I was using Final Cut. And I treat reels as folders and bins. I don't use libraries. I don't even know what libraries are. I've never delved into that because I tried reading the manual and it didn't seem to make any sense to me, so I just steer clear. Like a lot of things in Flame, I came on here to show a very basic workflow and show my ignorance for the greater good and hope to learn something, which I already have. Tim's
That's got to be maybe like the tagline or the slogan for Logik Live, showing our ignorance for the greater good. I love it.
So what I tend to do, I'll have a bunch of reels here which pretty much replicate the folders that I've got on my RAID. So I'll have my graphics, the rushes, pack shots. This particular one, I've actually got more stuff in here because it's a commercial I shot last week. And I knew that I needed to be renaming some of the files because when you have a look here, where are we? Well, like this, we did 21 different pack shots, I think. Just some of them are not showing because it's on my little hard drive at the side of me here, which isn't connected.
And it's a live demo.
And it's live.
If it's
so
going to air, if it's ever going to be unlinked,
pre-rendered.
it's going to be on a live demo. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll go back to the pre-rendered things there. At least then you can see what we did. My audio folder will just have anything audio in it. So whether it's the voiceover takes, the music choices we were doing, the final mixes, there's never really that much to worry about having multiple folders for audio, so I don't. For this particular job, we had various clips where the girl in the film was actually talking to the camera rather than just acting. So I put those in piece to cameras. Mm-hmm. Stop frame, this was one where it'd be pointless relying on the thumbnails purely because we were just taking one piece out every frame just to make a quick stop frame animation. So I'll put those in their own folder just to keep them separate. When I get down to the editing, I tend to have 2 or 3 different sequences folders purely so that I can have my early cuts where I'm just basically working out the edit. I tend to get to where I feel it's a good point to save it and move on, and I'll just duplicate them, renumber it, and just keep adding on. So I can always go back throughout the history of the edit to pull up a previous edit that suddenly makes a lot more sense than it did at the time.
Like in the style or the of like Final Cut or Premiere or whatever, you're just going to hit Control S.
Yeah.
To save your project.
Control D.
Yeah.
Control D to duplicate it. Mm-hmm. Like I say, these aren't linked up because my little hard drive here isn't very fast. So go back to there. Just to give you something to look at. So yeah, I'll have an early cut. So when I get to a point where I'm happy with the edit, I'll move a copy over into the finals sequence. And in here, these are the ones that I know we've approved, that I am happy with. I then move into my social media sequences where I do the 1x1s and the 9x16 versions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use connected conform and things like that, mainly because for the small number of spots that we do, it's nothing like what Tim was doing. This is probably more than I would normally do anyway. So for me, it's just as quick to do the longest edit that we're doing, do all the colouring and all the effects, and then I'll duplicate that and cut that down into the other versions so that we'll go from a 30 to a 20 to a 10,
Mm-hmm.
mainly using the material that I've already treated. And that way, then when I go into doing the social media formats, everything's already sorted out colour-wise. So I don't need to worry about it. Nobody's ever come back to me and said, we need to recolour something.
Consider
Because
yourself blessed.
Oh yeah, I'm in the really lucky position of working for a company that doesn't know anything about TV, and they just leave me to it. It always amazed me. The very first,
And
first
you're
commercial
hiring?
I did.
Yes.
Pardon?
And
Are you
you're hiring
hiring?
right now?
Unfortunately, not.
Are you looking for a
The
colorist?
very first commercial I did, I went to the boss and asked him, "Have you got a style guide for this commercial?" And he just looked at me and just to say, "What?" I said, "Well, it's what rules have you got about how we treat this logo and things?" And he just looked at me and said, "Just make it look good." So I've kind of worked on that as the guiding principle for the last 16 years, and they don't get to see it until I'm happy with it, and it's very rare that they'll ever want to change. So connected conform, it's a great idea, but it's not really relevant to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much how I organize them. Like I say, I don't use the libraries, and I'm hoping someone's going to explain what they are for, because it's not something that I've really understood. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a very basic,
I love
way
it.
to work.
I love it. Does anyone on the panel want to take a crack at explaining a library or their explanation of a library?
Sure, I'll do it. My idea of the library is to help break a job down into smaller pieces. And the
Right.
desktop is only what I'm doing live at that moment. Most jobs, I only have one desktop, but sometimes I have two, and I have a special folder in my library to hold the desktop. But for me, it's mostly to separate what I'm currently working on with the elements that go into multiple stuff.
Right. 'Cause, I mean, I do have the one desktop. What I was meaning, I know you can have multiple desktops within a project, and I
and
did do
and
one
you'd save them in the
several years
library.
ago. Yeah, I did
It's
use.
basically just another folder in which you can organize your work in a certain way.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, some of this is like legacy stuff. I mean, in the beginning, there
Yeah.
were only desktops. That's it,
Mm.
And then the
Yeah.
desktops had to
I've
go into
tried
something,
having
and they went into a library.
yeah, I've tried having multiple desktops in a single project, and found that when I came back to that 6 months later, trying to figure out why the stuff should have been in there and it wasn't, but it was in a different desktop. And I think I ended up switching to a desktop having done something, but I didn't save something. And then when I came back to it later, it had lost everything.
Yeah,
So it was round
that's
about
kind of
then that I
why
thought,
I
stick to one.
usually only have one desktop per job.
Mm,
If I'm
yeah,
going to have, but if my job is broken up in such a way that one part of it is virtually unrelated to the other part, sometimes the socials share none of the footage of the spots, then I'll
right,
make a separate desktop for that.
right.
And then,
Yeah,
of course,
It's like a different dish on the menu. That's how I think
right.
about
Mm.
it.
And
I might try that tomorrow.
I'm constantly getting updated materials from other people, and I don't want to
Mm,
clutter my desktop with those.
Yeah.
Sometimes
So-
I'll make a library for like common elements, like the logo, the client logo or the product logo. If there's something in like the style guide where there's like either a border that is constant or a bug or a lower third or something that even though I may be working on different spots in the campaign, even for different products, but those assets are going to be constant. I'll put them in a library that's just called elements or logos or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, speaking of people who have wounds on the inside that never heal, Michael Landon has said, desktops get corrupted more than libraries do. And so we've all been down that path.
I find
more
it
than
very, very rare, knock wood, but I find it very rare that I get corrupted desktops.
Yeah, it certainly has been a long time for me as well. Well, thank you, Adam. And the chat has been going wild for the hoodie. And so you definitely made a right call, and it touched me right
like
in.
I said to you earlier, we're talking about organization, and that's, to me, is making the most of your space. So why not
Hello.
buy the space suit?
I love it.
I still don't understand why your flag only has 48 stars, though.
Because it came from China.
There we go. That's right. It's because the moon landing
like
happened
that's like-
before
that's like
Alaska
the wrong-
became a state.
Yeah, exactly. That's like
It's the alternate timeline. It's the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
It's the perfect answer, and it's wrong at the same time.
I love it. David Kreitz, you
Okay.
work on long format projects. Not only like long, the timelines or the project themselves could be several minutes long, but you'll work on it for, as you explained when you were on Logic Live, sometimes for months. And so I imagine that influences the way you organize stuff as well. So let me bring up your screen, and you can take us through the method to your madness, sir.
All right. Well, every job is a little bit different and it has to be approached. I organize things differently depending on what the job is. This particular one, it's usually multi-screen things that I'm doing, and this one had 2 screens on it. So the first thing I kind of do is figure out how I'm going to be putting things together. This thing had a rear screen at 1 aspect ratio and a front screen at another aspect ratio. And then I had a way just to combine them to look at them as I was editing to see how things were going to look once the edit was done. So this particular film is I kind of broke it down in sections. It's most of the work I do has got a lot of layers to it, and so I'm getting a lot of different types of media. I've got got a lot of green screen. I've got stills. I've got text. I've got just things coming from everywhere, and so trying to find a way to kind of keep all that together. What I tend to do, and this will be good for Adam, I use libraries a lot, and the main thing that I do here, as far as the way I organize this project, was to go through and kind of by section what's going on by the scenes. I had also some pencil boards, so that as I got in here, I just started naming things as opposed as what the boards were named. So the libraries, I also keep multiple libraries in a project, and the reason for that is I end up, after a 15-minute film like this with all these different layers and stuff, I end up with a lot of material, and it slows the system down. If you've got one huge library that's open with everything in it, every time that it auto saves and you do a save, it takes a long time to save. So what I tend to do is put things in, like this is my footage, and anything else, my sequences I keep in a separate library as well. And anything that I'm not working on, like by the time I'm getting down, I've kind of edited and I'm now starting to finish and polish the sequence, I shut all the other libraries, and the only library that's open is the sequences library, which makes that stuff happen a lot more quickly. So what I do here in this type of a edit is I go through and match my folders basically to in timeline order, what's going to be happening. And so each of these folders has got all the elements in it that I need for those particular scenes. So for instance, here, first scene, I've got all of my final rendered plates for the shot with things that were done. And then I've got all my green screen footage. And then I've got a folder here with all of the CGI backgrounds. Whoops. all my CGI backgrounds that have been comped, and I keep my atmospheres and things separately. So the way that this works for me is that I do everything in batch for the most part. So I'm able to, in my desktop here, I am actually mirroring what's done down in the libraries. So open up any one of my batches, and so it's going to match where I am in the sequence. And I can just follow down the timeline, anything I want to do. And then I use write file nodes that I write out to my timeline so that anything as I get down here and, well, it's like here, okay, from 19 to 22, these frames, I got that. I want to get into that batch. I've got my batch that's already set up, and ready to go in order. It's really easy to find. And I also then in my library, I've got all the different elements. If I want to add or take anything like that, I'm able to deal with it that way. So that's really the basis of it. It just gives me a way to find things quickly, and as I'm changing things come in. I can literally just it's a very, very quick way to keep all of my batch stuff, my timeline, and my libraries all tied together. The other thing that I will do at the end of the day is I overwrite my desktop. I save a copy of the desktop in a separate library, and at the end of every day when I'm done, I will overwrite the desktop that's here just to keep a current copy of where the desktop is. And beyond that, the write file nodes help in keeping archive sizes down. The way I usually work is with an internal SSD RAID that's very fast, and I just use that only for my frame store. Then I've got another SSD that I keep for all my source material, and I'll also do my renders to that as well. And so the write file nodes will send it straight to that source SSD, and then I'm able to just do a small archive every night because I keep my frame store at RAID 0, which is dangerous to lose. But with the archive, and then I do a backup to a NAS RAID of my source disk, so that I've got everything every night where things are, so that if something goes down with the frame store or whatever, I can easily restore things and not have really lost much. So that's about it.
David, when you render your stuff out with a write file node, excuse me, how are you getting that back in?
Well, what I do originally is that I'll just pull it into my library and keep it with my shots that I'm using in there. And then what's nice about that is that anytime that once it's in there, I don't have to worry about it again. I have to use the write file node again. It overwrites. I tell it to overwrite. It changes it out in the sequence, and it also changes it out in the library as well. I'm not having to re-import. So it's basically that very first time that I pull in my write file into my library, I never have to do that again. And so no matter how many times I overwrite it, it'll just keep updating it, which makes it very smooth. And I don't have to cut things into the sequence again or anything else, so it saves a lot of time.
Gotcha. Cool. I love it.
That's it.
Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, I've been doing, I have a Python script that automatically imports whatever you just rendered out of batch with a write file node. But that does it every time. So, in the case of like how you're working is you're intentionally overwriting all that stuff. Like that's part of your workflow.
Yes.
As opposed to like the way I've always thought of write files and is I want to save every version just in case I ever need to go back for whatever reason.
There are times.
But I am starting to rethink that philosophy.
Let it go, Andy.
Really, really. Yeah,
Let it go.
I have.
Let it go, man.
Cut down
So
on the clutter.
Does the write file node do the same as render, only it exports the file out to an
Puts it to
external
wherever you
location?
Yep.
Yes.
Ah,
And so that way it
try
makes your archives. It makes your archives much smaller too, Andy, because
yeah.
they render stuff in any of your batches that have render nodes attached to them. All that data.
Yeah, that's huge.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's a ginormous consideration for facilities who are using cloud storage, and every single piece of data is being charged for, and that gets archived, so it's being charged for again. So yeah.
Yeah, I try to use write file notes for everything that I possibly can, just to help, prevent the inevitable data creep. And then
I was just going to say, if I've got a version that, like you were saying, a different version, an older version, I will append the name of the write file note if I want to keep an older one. But that doesn't happen very often. It's usually I'm just tweaking composites that I've got going. I generally overwrite, but then it's like, oh, I want to see what this looks like and keep the old one. Whatever, I will do that, but not very often.
Adam, just so you know, the write file node right now is limited to only writing out image sequences. You can't write out like a QuickTime movie, but I think it was Randy. Did you make that Python script that automatically converts those to the QuickTimes? I see that in the forum.
That's very kind of you to think I made it. I think I coerced Bob Maple into helping me figure it out. Yeah, it's called the People's Write Node Python script. And it's a write node. It's a Python. You check it out, Autodesk Python shared, and anything that every time you do a write node, it automatically encodes a quad 4 ProRes.
That's great. It's like it intercepts those. You don't end up with an image sequence and the quad 4, right?
It either
deletes it or it intercepts it.
I think it deletes the sequence. It deletes the EXR. So we call it. There's a forum post called the People's Write Node Python script.
I love it.
And does it embed an alpha in that as well?
Come on, Tim. Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's smarter minds. It's based on a default example script provided in I forget where the Autodesk puts theirs. Autodesk examples.
Autodesk Flame version Python presets.
Yeah. There is an option to make it that where you could call upon a preset of your choosing. So if you wanted a quad 4 with no audio or no alpha, or you wanted a 422 or whatever. So there are cleverer people out there. I am not a developer. I just know how to whine and ask people favors.
Couple of things, real quick questions that have come in. BJ was wondering why there was so little usage of color in the timeline for like coloring clips or segments. Renee had put in here that she colors everything. I don't color everything in the timeline, but I will color certain things, like similar to what Tim showed, as like visual cues. Either things that are like, I think Tim showed gap batch effects. You colored them purple or something. And then I've been doing gap batch effects if they need to be like, I was doing a whole series of things in the last couple of weeks where I needed to blow up a shot 300%, for a social media version. And so I needed to put a little sharpen on it. And I wanted to make sure that the sharpen was only applied in the 9x16 and was not in the 16x9 because I didn't have to blow it up in the 16x9. So taking those little gap effects and making them orange or whatever. And I don't know if it's in the portal, but John Fegan had made a Python script that will automatically color code any clip in the timeline that has like a time warp on it. So if when you get your conform going, if you want to see where the time warps are, it'll make them a color. So there are options for things like that.
Where the bodies are buried, right? Yeah, there's sometimes I'll have stuff colored. I'll just like what Tim or someone else described. Like if it needs my attention, but typically when I'm done, I turn it off because next time the project comes back, I don't know what color it is. I change it all the time. So the only thing for me is a red is a master, so that's important. Everything else is
I used to do it. I used to color everything, but then it just got too psychedelic.
And you bought that grayscale screen, and nothing mattered anymore.
Correct.
Sweet. Oh, Fred just chimed in. Bless you, Fred. Keep in mind that you can change the default color of segments like gap batch effects in Flame preferences.
Yeah, I'm looking for it now. I forget where it is.
I think it's in your timeline.
Yeah. It's also a really good April Fool's joke.
Timeline.
Yeah, right. You make everything red.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And I have a write node tip there for Renee or anybody else out there. When I create write nodes, I use the one the one bookmark to save them all or whatever. I have that all tied together. So when I put a write node into batch, it's automatically populated with the path for the job to make sure that it gets saved in the right place, and it doesn't just default to var temp or some default place. So
and how do you do that, Andy?
with Python, as a matter of fact.
Oh, can it? It's just
by
that
using-
you could do it. Yeah, but you could just do it,
Well,
and you could do
use
the
the
tokens
project.
in the.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
The real secret is I have the project nickname.
The real sequence is not Python.
Yeah, is that I don't use Python at all. I have I always make sure when I create a project that the project nickname is the exact name of the job folder or the folder on my SAN or the NAS or whatever, and so that way the right node is populated with a little project nickname token, and then everything goes where it needs to go.
I use the nickname token as well, but for a different reason, and that's so that sometimes if I'm doing a revision of a job that I've done months ago and it's no longer on Flame and I'm starting a new project, but it's still on the shared area network under a different name, I can put a different name in for my for my hooks.
Yeah, no, I settled on nickname as a way to for the same reason. You know, I'd be working on a job forever, and then it would come back, and it would come back with a different. It was in the same root folder, but it had a different name. Maybe this was like Rev1, or it was whatever social media versions or something. That way, the project nickname token could always remain constant if the job name needed to change for whatever reason. This was awesome, everybody. Thank you very much. I think again we should be doing more and more things like this because everybody has different use cases. Everybody has different solutions to the same problems. And I know I've taken a lot from this, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Before we sign off, I just want to do this. Oh, hold on, Randy. I got to move the window.
What
Hold
window? Oh, that window.
Yeah.
The perils of watching the YouTube feed.
What's happening here? There we go. Okay, well, I guess I can move this. We're going to give away, it's in honor of the warmer months, we're going to be giving away a Logik t-shirt right now to one lucky winner. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle these names up a little bit, and we'll spin the wheel. Oh, my goodness. Ralphie Skaggs gets a t-shirt. Congratulations, Ralph. And we're going to do, you know what? I was going to do a hat, but let's just do one more t-shirt. Well, I'm clicking the wrong window, Randy. Okay, here we go. One more time. Round and round she goes. Javi Mendez. And finally, I've got that 1-year license of optics from our friends at Boris FX. Let's spin the wheel. Here it goes. Kind of dizzy. At least there's a cat to look at. Mark Wellington, congratulations, brother. All right. Wonderful.
Hope you're feeling better, Mark.
Yes, we hope you're feeling better, Mark. Again, that ended abruptly. Thank you again, everybody. You guys, I'll see you all over in the patrons chat in a few minutes. I'm going to wrap things up here with what's coming up on Logik Live. We are back in 2 weeks. Next week, there are a couple of holidays next weekend, so we're going to come back in 2 weeks, April 23rd, a Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to talk hardware. There's so much going on in hardware right now. You got the new Apple M1 stuff, the Apple Studio Mac Studio computers, excuse me, and then all the new offerings from Lenovo. And it's just, there's so much to talk about hardware. There have been some great threads going on the forum. So we're going to go ahead and talk hardware on Logik Live. We'll have a couple of guests on, and Randy and I will have a big announcement to make, so you definitely want to catch that show. A big hardware announcement coming up. And then 2 weeks after that, on May 7th, our friend Sean Sams answered the call, and he's going to come on and do a step-by-step guide to Synthesize. Just a fair warning, everybody. I'm still trying to schedule all of our post-NAB stuff. So we may do something different on May 7th, and I may push Sam back 1 week. But for now, that's what we got queued up on Logik Live's coming up in the weeks ahead. If you haven't signed up for the forum, please go ahead and do that at forum.logik.tv. It would mean the world to Randy and me. And while you're there, join us on Discord. This episode of Logik Live is going to join all of its friends on the website soon after this show is over. Be sure to check out the latest podcast episode. I did an interview with Cristobal Valenzuela of Runway, and it was just an amazing conversation about the current state and the future state of machine learning and VFX, and also Chris talked a lot about his journey in going from an artist and a creator to a student to the CEO of Runway. The guys, that team is doing amazing stuff. So definitely check that out when you get a chance. We'll have some more episodes coming for you. I'm sorry I've fallen behind, but with the COVID, it was hard for me to record. But I've got a couple lined up, and so we'll make sure we have new podcast episodes coming out shortly. We're over 1,300 subscribers on YouTube, Randy. I know that makes you happy. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. And
Is it more than Joel Osis yet? Because that's all I care about.
Not yet. We're getting there.
Oh.
Though. It's getting closer.
Okay.
If you'd like to become a patron and be a part of our patrons after party little shows there, just go to patreon.com/logictv. You can also get your hands on some great merch and some discounts. Thank you to all of our patrons. Speaking of merch, be sure to get all your gear at the Logik merch store. And if you're having any technical support, call Jack Horrocks. You can reach him at jack@flametech.com.au. And if you're in the market for anything from Boris Effects, please use the Logik TV discount code and save 15% on everything that they have available. Thank you, AJA, and thank you so much to Synesys for sponsoring Logik Live. Thank you to the panel, and we'll see you all over on Zoom in a couple minutes. Have a great week, everybody. Great couple of weeks, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.